Okay, so this is your basic annotation guide to Brooklyn. It's going to include the themes, motifs, symbols, and the characterization you're going to be looking for. So the learning intention for this is for you to understand the key concepts that we'll be annotating, and the reason we do this is so that the whole class has a similar style or form of annotation. Of course, you can write your own notes, you can do whatever else in addition to this, but this will help us be on the same topic, and it'll help us be able to basically work together as a class to read the book and annotate it especially quickly, which should save time for the whole class really. The success criteria is you will understand the concepts of your annotation, and you will have annotated one example of a couple of the things that we'll be doing. Your task, of course, is on a blank page in front of your novel, record the notation you will use for themes, symbols, motifs, and characters. So this could be the front inside cover of your book, or the back page, or anywhere that's kind of quick, because you'll be checking back every now and again. So you might read a section and think, well, this is a really good example of love, and then you'll fold to the front of your book or the back or wherever you've got it, and then that'll remind you what colour or symbol or shape or picture you use to describe the theme that you're looking for. And then what you'll have to do is locate one example for each of these. So for example, you'll have to find one of each of the motifs, one of each of the symbols, so on the themes, and the characters as well. And that should give you a pretty good understanding and a little dip into the novel before we study it fully in class. So the 4 themes are personal identity and growth firstly. So this is any time that we see the main character Eilis or Eilish, when we see her make growth or make progress. So basically any time she's actually making an action or making a choice, this is probably a good example of her personal growth. To give you a basic rough overview, she's very shy when she's in Ireland, and in America she gradually becomes more confident and more capable. Second theme is secrecy and social expectations. So being a woman, there's a lot of things she has to keep secret, and there's a lot of things that she's expected to do and to believe, and different ways that she's supposed to act. The third theme is loss and longing and the migrant experience. So most notably this will be when she's thinking back to Enniscorthy, how she loved it, the best parts about it, and also when she's then back in Enniscorthy thinking about Brooklyn, or not thinking about Brooklyn, and showing what she's lost, what she misses, what she wished she could have back. And also the migrant experience, so when she's mistreated or when she's got wide open eyes to the new environment she's in, this could also be highlighted in this colour. And the last theme is control versus freedom. So there's 2 ends of the spectrum. Control is when the church or the men in her life or anyone decides what she does, and freedom is when she gets to make her own choices, her own decisions, and she actually has impact on the story and her own life. So you'll highlight these 2 different forms of control and freedom, so the 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. So here's an example to get you started. It's an example of personal growth and identity, and it's on page 91. So pause the video, find it in your book, and highlight it in the colour you've chosen. Second one is secrecy and social expectations or repression. And this is on page 123. Pause the video, find it in your book, highlight it in the colour that you've set. For me, it's orange. Loss and longing and the migrant experience. This is on page 174. Pause the video, find it in your book, highlight it, and you might even want to add the symbol for religion, which here is a cross, but again, it could be anything you choose. Control versus freedom. Pause it, go to 187, highlight it in your book. And you could even add the note I've got here, a new sense of empowerment, if you feel the need. The motifs, so these are things that reoccur throughout the book and are important. So family, that's pretty obvious. Religion, again, very obvious. Father Flood being the main proponent of this. Racism, you're thinking mostly in America. There's almost none mentioned or conveyed in Ireland. Sex, so there's only two real scenes where this comes up. One between the main character and Tony, and also the strange bikini incident in the book. Female power, so this is basically any time a woman gets her way by using her femininity to effect. The best example would be on the boat trip from Ireland to the US. Her travelling companion does a number of things that are quite surprising and eye-opening for the main character. Love is pretty obvious, that will come up quite a bit. Education, and I guess is education as an escape or as a tool to progress in life, and obviously the main character uses this as her tool. Class and social status, so this is mostly in Ireland. Anytime you see stratification or someone refers to someone disparagingly because they're poorer or they have a less nice job, or even it could be they went to a different country. So obviously the Irish went to the US, they went to Australia, they went to New Zealand, they went to England, and she explains how some are better than others in that sense. The church influence, so this is more than just religion, more than just, then we prayed to God and it was all good. So this is again probably mostly Father Flood, but anything that he does either directly or remotely through the church. Duty is a big motif that's very much reoccurring, could almost be a theme, it's that frequent. But anytime the main character Eilis is compelled to do something out of duty, she's forced to, she feels the need to do it, then that's duty. Letters is another big motif, it just comes up again and again. So anytime there's a letter referred to, or there's actually a letter within the text, you should put this little symbol there to remind you, in case you're using that perhaps in an essay referring to the role that letters have, then you could find these symbols and use it in your essay. So you're also going to be finding symbols, but firstly it's probably more important to look at characterization. So I've just listed all the characters here and given them a short little initial. The only one I've left out is Eilis's mother. You might want to add that yourself. So Enniscorthy is a character in the book, so anytime they give a short, succinct, probably one sentence or less description of Enniscorthy, you put a little EN and a circle next to it, maybe even a post-it note with an E on it or an ENN, so that you can then find it later when you have to come to describe Enniscorthy. Also, notably, Brooklyn is another character, and then of course you've got all the other characters in the book. So again, you're looking for a succinct description of them, something you could quote and put in an essay. So you're thinking short rather than long, half a sentence rather than a paragraph wherever possible. Or just highlight the section or circle the section, whatever you want to do, mark it, and then at a later date we'll go through and shorten it down to make it essay ready. So go to page 74 and 229. There's one for Eilis and there's one for Rose. Tony, go to page 217. For Mrs. Keogh and Father Flood, you're looking at page 54 and page 78. So for Miss Lacey and Laura Fortini, you're looking at page 78 and page 61. Find this section, add the little symbol we've got there. And lastly, a short little description of Enniscorthy and Brooklyn. And this is page 24 right towards the start, and they're contrasting the two places. Lastly, you're looking at symbols, and this is more for you to find. So symbols are almost identical to motifs, but they don't occur as often. So for example, Rose's clothing is only really mentioned at the start of the book and a tiny bit at the very end. So it's a symbol. If it happened 3 or 4 times, then it'd be a motif more likely. Eilis's photograph of her and Jack on the beach, so towards part 4 of the book, this becomes something that's referred to a number of times, but not throughout the book. Bathing costumes, and there's a little bit of consternation. Bathing costumes, and there's a little bit of consternation about how good she'll look in it and which one she'll wear. So this happens over a couple of parts, but again, it's not important enough to be a motif. And makeup, which is mostly mentioned towards the start of the book when they're on the journey to America. After you've read it, go through, think of what symbols you think were important in the book, but not as important as motifs. And of course, in addition, you might want to add motifs as well as you go. So these are just the ones I did on the couple of reads that I did, but you could think of your own, you could think of more, you could think of break these down into small little groups if you like. Whatever makes sense to you and whatever helps you to develop your own reading of the novel. So just referring back to your task, your job now is to find one of each of these of your own rather than the ones that I've provided, in addition to, I guess, and then find one example of each of the motifs. You could also find your own symbols. Again, I've mentioned pretty roughly where they are, so that should make it a little bit quicker for you. And you might want to add one of your own and also a motif of your own, or at least think about it and see what else you can do. Good luck.